I'm Tiffani Neilson, and with me is my incredible co host, Dr. Joe Perez. How are you today, Dr. Joe?
Hello, Tiffany. I'm doing well, thanks. How about you, ma'am?
I'm doing great. So tell us, it's been a minute. What's new in your world?
It has been a while, hasn't it? Yeah. So, I am really excited about my keynote at the ProcureCon Travel Conference in Denver this month. Also, my upcoming engagement at MIT next month. Yeah, I've been invited to speak at the CDIOQ Symposium, middle of July. And I am just so excited about this amazing opportunity, Tiffany. Second year in a row. It'll be a great conference. On the authoring front, I am one step closer to establishing a date for the publishing of my next book. I think I can say the title Numbers to Narratives, Harnessing the Power of Data Visualization. Yeah. So I'm not able to share an exact publishing date just yet. But what I can tell you is it should be sometime in very early 2025. So be on the lookout. As soon as I can make a definite announcement, I definitely will. All right. Let's see, the most exciting event in all the history of mankind on this whole planet, or maybe any other planet that I know of, is my 40th wedding anniversary. Yeah. My wife and I are celebrating in Denver and enjoying each other's company as we commemorate our lives together. Such a joy to know that I've got the rest of the days that I have on Earth, however many they may be, to spend with the love of my life, the mother of my children, the girl of my dreams, and the mate of my soul. Plus, she's pretty cute, pretty. I can't say it. Pretty cute too. Shout out to Diana. I love you, baby. So enough about that before it gets too syrupy. How are things going with you, Tiffany?
Oh, busy as ever. As far as work goes, we've got our AI Summit coming up on July 18th. So if you haven't done so yet, please register if you want to learn more about how to digitally transform your business, including AI. We also have speaking opportunities available, and you can get your ticket and learn more about speaking or sponsoring at iotmktg.com. And there's also free passes to our Green Things Summit, which just passed, and that event is still available. It's open for 90 days, even after the event ends. And we have our Summit of Things event coming up in October, which is a 3-day virtual summit, and our award shows coming up in December. So lots to do around the work front. But I just returned from a much deserved vacation. And so
Yes.
that was a pleasure. My mom and dad flew out, and we packed up their large rental SUV, and all of us went out to California. We took the baby and we went to Big Bear
Oh,
and to Newport, where we stayed at these amazing villas, and traveled down to San Diego, to La Jolla, and Seaport Village. I'm not sure if you've ever been there, but it was absolutely amazing. And then we went to Laguna and all around Newport, and we just had a
wow.
great time together. So it was very special. And now back to
Awesome.
this month's topic, which is More Than Stars and Stripes, Unfurling the Stories Beneath the Flags. Dr. Joe came up with the title, so it's a little different than my usual titles, but I do like it. And since June 14th is recognized as USA in the USA as Flag Day, we're going to talk about our own country's flag, a symbol of freedom and integrity, but we'll also be talking about other symbols, whether they're national ones, the unite people, corporate ones that identify products, athletic ones that identify teams and fan culture, and many more. So, to start off, here's a little bit about Flag Day. Nearly 250 years ago, on June 14th, 1977, gosh, that seems so far away, the Continental Congress approved the design of a national flag. We now celebrate Flag Day on the anniversary of that resolution. However, it was not until 1916 that President Woodrow Wilson issued a proclamation that officially established June 14th as Flag Day. And on August 3rd, 1949, National Flag Day was established by an act of Congress. National flags are patriotic symbols with widely varied interpretations that often include strong military associations because of their original and ongoing use for that purpose. Flags are also used in messaging, advertising, and for decorative purposes. Many flags fall into flag families. The study of flags is known as vexillology, from the Latin vexillum, meaning flag or banner. And flags are powerful symbols that tell stories about who we are, what we believe in, and the causes that we hold dear. So, Dr. Joe, how do flags go beyond representing a single nation? They seem to unify people in all sorts of ways.
Yes, they do, Tiffany. Excuse me. Um, great concept, Tiffany. Think about sports fans, right? They wear their team jerseys. That's kind of like a flag. I mean, it's not just about the colors or the logos, but it's about showing loyalty and sharing that passion with everyone else. Flags work in the same way, on a national level, embodying the country's values and aspirations and that kind of thing. It gets even more interesting. Pirates, for example, would fly a neutral flag to disguise themselves in their ship. They would hoist their colors, matey, with their, the skull and crossbones, right? When they were ready to attack. We even have an expression for that, flying under a false flag, we say, which means deceiving someone by pretending to be something you're not. Now, this tactic has been employed throughout history, from espionage to political intrigue and subterfuge, whatever you want to call it. Um, Imagine a ship sailing under a friendly flag only to reveal its true intentions later. And by that time, it's too late for the unsuspecting target, right? So, the concept of flying under a false flag extends beyond the high seas, infiltrating realms of intrigue and infiltration, where appearances can be as treacherous as hidden agendas. So, yeah, flags can be used for more than just national pride. Wouldn't you say, Tiffany?
Absolutely, Dr. Joe. And that was certainly the case with the Gadsden flag and the Spirit of Liberty, the iconic yellow banner with a coiled rattlesnake and the words, "Don't tread on me."
Yeah.
They might seem like a simple symbol of American defiance, but the Gadsden flag has a rich history dating back to the Revolutionary War. It embodied the spirit of the colonists who refused to be bullied by the British crown. And this flag, with its powerful message, continues to resonate with those who value individual liberty and stand against oppression. A similar story, and an interesting one, about how flags can stand up against opposition. Canada has not always had its iconic red and white maple leaf flag. In fact, the quest
Hmm.
for a national flag for Canada dates all the way back to the 19th and 20th century. The flag as we know it emerged from the major social transformations during the 1950s and 1960s in the lead up to the 100th anniversary of Confederation in 1967. And several different flags were used in Canada before the current national flag. Since the first days of the European presence on Canadian soil, the flags of the European homeland, such as France, were displayed. Both before and after the Confederation in 1867, Canada used the UK's Royal Union flag, commonly known as the Union Jack. Another British flag used in Canada was the Red Ensign. And while it was officially a naval flag, again, here we go with the maritime references, used by Canadian ships starting in the 1890s, the Canadian Red Ensign, a combination of the Union Jack and the Shield of Canada, had been used unofficially both at sea and on land since the 1870s and was widely recognized as a national symbol. And then in 1921, King George V granted the Royal Arms to Canada, and the Shield of Canada's new official coat of arms took its place on the Canadian Red Ensign. It is this version of the Canadian Red Ensign that represented Canada during the Second World War. And Canadian troops were sent to Egypt, and this is so interesting, in 1956 as United Nations peacekeepers during the Suez Crisis, which saw an invasion of Egypt by Israel, France, and the UK. And the Canadian troops flew the Canadian Red Ensign, which incorporates the Union Jack. And to Egyptian observers, it appeared that Canada was flying the flag of an invading nation. And this misunderstanding helps reinforce the call for a distinctive and unique Canadian national flag. The new maple leaf flag was made official by a proclamation from Queen Elizabeth II on January 28, 1965. And on February 15th of that year, it was inaugurated in a public ceremony where thousands of Canadians gathered as the Canadian red ensign was lowered, and at the strike of noon, the new national flag of Canada was hoisted. And Prime Minister Pearson's words on the occasion resound with hope and determination. May the land over which this new flag flies remain united in freedom and justice, sensitive, tolerant, and compassionate towards all. And we've seen all kinds of things going on in Canada, so we'll hope that it stays that way. Can you think of any other flags that were also powerful symbols of people standing against oppression, Dr. Joe?
Absolutely. There are quite a few examples that that I know of. One of them is I think it's quite interesting. Let's say it this way. I'd like for you to go back in time with me, all right, in your imagination. Say maybe 35 years or so. Imagine for a moment a simple student banner bearing the inscription, just two words: truth prevails. And imagine that simple banner sparking a peaceful revolution that toppled a communist regime. Now, that's the backdrop for the story that came to be known as the Czech Velvet Revolution of 1989. To give you a little more background, a group of students in Prague, and yes, I said Prague, my wife and I just came back from there a few weeks ago, as a matter of fact. And thankfully, while we were in Prague, there were no revolutions going on, velvet or otherwise, thank God, you know. But anyway, these students, inspired by the ideals of freedom and democracy, created a flag that became a symbol of their resistance against the oppressive government that was in power at that time. Now, although the specifics of the flag would vary from, group to group, it was typically a large rectangular flag that prominently featured the colors of their national flag, which incidentally just happened to be red, white, and blue. So, as their movement continued to gain momentum, the flag spread throughout the country, uniting citizens in their fight for change. And this seemingly ordinary student banner, all it is just a big old piece of cloth, okay, through its powerful message of those two words and its symbolic impact, it played a pivotal role in bringing down a dictatorship and paving the way for a new era in Czech history. So yeah, that's what they called it, the Velvet Revolution. See, it was called this pretty much due to the remarkably peaceful and smooth transition to power. I suppose much like the gentle touch of velvet, perhaps. And this led to the end of 41 years of one-party communist rule in a country that, well, at that time it was called Czechoslovakia. Certainly in stark contrast to the more violent ways that other communist regimes were toppled in and around that same period of time of the late 80s, early 90s. But you know what, Tiffany? It does not always have to be about a revolution. I mean, sometimes flags could just be all about people being on opposite teams. Isn't that right, Tiffany?
Yes, indeed, Dr. Joe. Speaking of people being on opposite teams, in sports, flags symbolize deep emotions, unity, and pride of teams, groups, or entire nations. These symbols play a crucial role in various events such as championships, local competitions, and fan gatherings by creating a unique and rousing atmosphere. Pennants are a form of flag associated with American sports teams such as Major League Baseball and college sports teams. In association football, linesmen carry small flags along the touchlines. They use flags to indicate to the referee potential infringements of the laws or who is entitled to possession of the ball that has gone out of the field of play, or most famously, raising the flag to indicate an offside offense. In American and Canadian football, referees use penalty flags to indicate that a foul has been committed in the game. The phrase used for such an indication is flag on the play. And there are also racing flags and many other uses for flags within sports, even making a game based on the flag itself, such as Capture the Flag,
Yeah.
a game that embodies the symbolic power of flags. You know, the colors of those flags in Capture the Flag are usually pretty arbitrary, chosen just to differentiate the teams. But in the real world, flag colors often hold deep symbolic meaning. Dr. Joe, you mentioned pirates striking the colors, RE matey, earlier,
Arr.
and that got me thinking about how different flags with different colors have different meanings, right? Like the white flag of surrender. And what other special colors of flags do you know about, Dr. Joe?
Oh yeah, you make an excellent point about the colors of different flags. Right, absolutely right about the white flag of surrender, Tiffany. And yeah, there are indeed several different colors for special flags, each of which has a distinct purpose. For example, the white flag that you already mentioned, right, symbolizing surrender, peace, purity. During the Eastern Han Dynasty in China, and this would be around, maybe the first 3 centuries AD, soldiers adopted white surrender flags to express sorrow in defeat. Now, in Western warfare, the white flag became well established, and it also played a role in battlefield negotiations and ceasefires. Now, this was later made official, codified, if you will, in the Hague and Geneva Conventions of the 19th and 20th centuries. The rationale being that, well, white is such a highly visible color even in poor conditions of the weather, thus easily recognizable and universally accepted as the perfect blank canvas, if you will, to symbolize cessation of hostilities. In auto racing, you mentioned that a little bit. The white flag indicates the last lap of the race, warning drivers that, well, this contest is about to end, guys. So then there's the black flag. First thing that comes in everybody's mind, of course, is piracy, that you already mentioned. But there's also the plague. There's also mourning that people might not have considered. So first, the Jolly Roger, R matey, you talked about that earlier. Anyway, that flag is black, emblazoned with a white skull and crossbones symbol. That is so iconic. But there was more to the Black Flag. During the bubonic plague, for example, cities would fly solid black flags to signal that most of their residents were stricken with that disease. Um, since black absorbs all light, well, using the color black, I mean, as a sign of mourning, symbolizes the absorption of pain and sorrow for the mourners. Then there's yellow. I think disease and quarantine. The yellow flag. It was called the Yellow Jack flag. It was flown on ships to signal that they might harbor a dangerous disease on board and they needed to be quarantined. Okay, this plain yellow flag, symbolizing Q for quarantine of all things, has a maritime origin. We talked about maritime things, right? As a matter of fact, it connects to Quebec's iconic I can't say that, fleur de lis flag. In auto racing, we talked about that a little bit. The yellow flag warns drivers that there's some kind of hazard that is on the track or close to the track. Um, let's see, then there's the red flag, right? You think of the color red, you think warning, danger, right? The red flag of warning, It's also revolution and defiance, from maritime warnings to political movements. Typically, flags that are red when they are unfurled, plain red, this gives a universal signal that demands attention one way or the other, and change as well, often revolutionary change. Another way that a red flag is used that indicates change, if you will, or the demand for change, or the demand for your attention, is the red flag that's used in Formula One racing. All right, it means the session has been suspended and drivers need to reduce their speed and return to the pit lane. I didn't know that. until I researched this. Another variation on the red flag is the Red Cross. And that, of course, is, the universal symbol of medical aid and neutrality. You don't shoot at a hospital ship, at least you're not supposed to. Quite often the Red Cross will be shown on a plain white background, right? The medical aid of the red, the neutrality of the white, all in one powerful symbol without having to have any words on it. That's the whole idea. With all of these special flags that are just these one solid color that we've been talking about, Tiffani, the white, the black, the yellow, the red, and so forth. It's just a simple, solid color. No words are necessary. Why? Because each of those are already creating a mental picture, an emotional picture within the mind of the person who sees it. And that's why they were so effective and still are effective to this day in, well, the purpose that they're trying to accomplish. With all the talk about these various types of flags, I believe that we've now come full circle, haven't we, Tiffani?
Yes, you're right, Dr. Joe. We have, and that was pretty deep that you got into. I really like all of the information that you shared there. And let's get back to national flags. Since we're in the month of Flag
Hmm.
Day, most of us would normally think of national flags as having a horizontal orientation, that is, being rectangular in shape, generally twice as long as they are tall or more. But throughout the world and throughout history, there have been other flags that don't exactly fit the mold and might even seem strange to some people. Take the flag of Switzerland. For example, it's shaped like a big square, which is pretty unique. Well, not completely unique, because alongside the Swiss flag of the Vatican City, an independent city state within Rome, is the only other square national flag in the world. Then there's the flag of Nepal, which is shaped like a combination of two stacked triangles. And the jagged
Huh.
edges represent the Himalayan mountains, emphasizing the country's lofty peaks. The blue border symbolizes peace and harmony, while the red background, Nepal's national color, signifies the brave spirit of its people. The sun and moon symbols express hope that Nepal will endure as long as the celestial bodies. How awesome is that? And
Wow.
what other fascinating and distinct national flags have you heard about, Dr. Joe?
Oh man, quite a few. Well, not really all, as you said, the majority are going to be that rectangular orientation. And you've mentioned some pretty doggone interesting flags. Another one, I think, it's still rectangular, but it's got interesting symbology. The flag of Mozambique. It has horizontal stripes of green, black, and yellow. But on the left side, there's a red triangle with an AK-47 rifle crossed with a hoe, all that beneath a yellow star. Quite interesting. The flag of Kyrgyzstan might remind you of the official logo for the International Basketball Federation, but it's not. It holds a much deeper meaning. Um, this flag design was designed after the country's independence from the former Soviet Union in 1991. The flag features a sun. I mean SUN, like the sun up in the sky, that is, in the center of it. Now, the sun represents peace and wealth, and it's set against the red background, and that symbolizes valor and bravery. The 40 rays surrounding the sun on all sides represent the 40 different Kyrgyz tribes. I love that word, Kyrgyz. I always wanted to say it because it doesn't look like what it's pronounced. But anyway, the 40 Kyrgyz tribes that were unified by the epic hero Mansus, I think his name is, against the Mongols. Well, anyway, inside that sun, a tunduk symbol symbolizes the traditional Kyrgyz yurt, signifying family and home. And if you didn't already know that, a yurt is a large, round, tent like structure that's popular over there. Um, Earlier, we talked about those special symbolic flags, right? The ones that have just the one single color. Well, the country of Libya stands out as being the only one in recent history to have used one single color in their flag. From 1977 all the way to 2011, Libya's national flag consisted of a solid green field. That's it. It was closely associated with the Gaddafi regime. And, well, as I'm sure you can probably imagine, the country adopted a new design after the fall of Gaddafi in 2011. Oh, speaking of green flags, something I forgot. I'm sorry. One green flag I failed to mention when we were talking about the plain colored flags, right? And that's the green flag that's used in Formula One auto racing. That flag acts as an all clear signal indicating that any previous incident that caused the yellow flag that we talked about has indeed been resolved, and drivers can, well, they can resume their driving. Okay, so um, let's see. Flags of ancient empires. That's another thing that's interesting. Two that might come to most people's mind, to your mind and my mind, since our program is called Mind to Mind here, right? The two you might be thinking about, most people perhaps, are the Greek and Roman empires. Okay, well, some might not know this, but neither of those empires had a standard national flag as we might think of them in modern terms and times. In fact, the concept of national flags, as we know them today, was not common in ancient times. For instance, in the Greek Empire, each of the city states had its own unique symbol and banner, often representing the city's patron deity, legendary heroes, or some other significant aspects. Like the city of Athens used an owl as their symbol, and that was associated with the goddess Athena. Corinth used a Pegasus, the winged mythical horse, as its symbol. The city of Thebes had a shield with a sphinx as its symbol. So the Greek armies used military standards, banners that were called vexilla, harkening back to the word flag that you so eloquently mentioned earlier. It would consist of a tall pole with various symbols attached to the top. Now, as for the Roman Empire, they used various symbols and military things as well, and they represented their power and identity as Rome. These standards or banners often featured eagles, and as many know, that was a symbol of Roman power and authority. And then there's the most famous and enduring symbol associated with both, I guess, the Roman Republic and the Roman Empire is the empire or the acronym SPQR. SPQR acronym stands for Senatus Propublicus Romanus, something like that. I don't know if I pronounced that right or not, but that phrase translates to the Senate and people of Rome in English. And these letters, or this symbol, this acronym, represented the collective identity and authority of the Roman state and would be prominently featured in inscriptions, monuments, and official documents throughout the empire, and sometimes even on their flags or their standards as well. So, Tiffani, I think this brings us to the final part of our exploration, how flags have transcended national borders and influenced movements and causes among all of history, including our own history in the United States as we celebrate the Stars and Stripes on June 14th. Now, what are your thoughts on this fascinating aspects of flags and the other things that we've talked about today, Tiffani?
Well, thank you, Dr. Joe. And you're absolutely right. Flags may have started as symbols of nations, but their reach extends far beyond borders. They've become rallying points for social movements, a beacon of hope for the oppressed, and even a playful way to show team spirit. From the Romans using standards to the pirates hoisting their Jolly Roger, from the white flag of surrender to the black flag of the plague, flags have a remarkable ability to speak volumes without uttering a single word. And they're living testaments to our shared human history, our struggles, our triumphs, and the causes we hold dear. So, the next time that you see a flag flying high, take a moment to appreciate the story that it tells, the emotions that it evokes, and the power it holds to unite us all. Thanks for joining us for this special exploration of flags, everyone. And be sure to register now for all of our upcoming events for IoT marketing. We've got the Intelligent Thinking AI Day, the Summit of Things, Industry Insights IoT Awards, and 2025 Emerging Trends. My goodness, what will be happening then. I guess we'll have to wait and see. But thank you
That's
so much
right.
for joining me, Dr. Joe. It was a pleasure as always.
Yes, ma'am. The honor and pleasure are mine. Take
Thanks,
care.
everyone. Bye bye.
Bye-bye, everybody.